Okay, everybody's starting to run in here, so we'll get started. So, there are some evil words out there for golfers for 100 years, all right? And maybe the most evil is the cast, all right? This move, all right? Everybody hates that. Nobody wants to do it. And it's turned into 100 years of holding lag. And that helped pretty much nobody. So I have a video on this. Some of you may have seen it. Some of you may not have. If you're interested, it's 40% off with the code NTLive, all caps. But that's what the beginning of the discussion is going to be. Is I'm going to talk about how the wrists are supposed to move in the swing, and then I'm going to take a bunch of questions on what I said or on anything really. So let's familiarize ourselves with a couple of people think fancy technical terms. They're not. They're just shorthand for movements. So if we're in a neutral position here, that's radial deviation, the cast. This is, excuse me, I've lost my mind, see, already. This is ulnar deviation, the cast. Don't even know the words, I'm trying to explain them, right? And then this is radial deviation, known as hinging, the vertical hinge in the wrists, okay? Then on the lead wrist, this is my left hand, I know the camera's backwards. This is flexion, this is extension. So when I talk about ulnar deviation, radial deviation, flexion, and extension, we know what I'm talking about. So casting, early ulnar deviation, unloading the angles. And here's where the misunderstanding lies. Every good player does it, without exception. And the difference between what hackers do and even decent golfers do and what the pros do is everybody thinks the pros hold the angle longer. And that's not really the case. Now, when you look at it in two dimensions, and even when you look at it in wrist graphs, it looks like, yes, the pros are holding this angle longer. But in reality, what's actually happening is they are ulnar deviating in a different direction. That is the important part. And yes, a lot of amateurs will do it early, but it's mostly in the wrong direction and mostly the result of poor sequencing of other movements. So let's turn the camera around and let's talk about some of this. Okay, so when you're looking at bad golfers, you see this, that, okay? And from this angle, it looks like that. Oh, you're casting, you gotta hold the leg. This is a disaster because for a number of different reasons, all right? But, if you look at and you isolate wrist movements from the body shifting and rotating, watch what happens as a net result of separating these two movements. So if I go up to the top and I do this ugly move that nobody wants while the body is shifting and rotating, look how I get to impact. Kind of where we want, all right? So let's work backwards here, all right? And you're gonna understand why these movements are so important. So, we know, we watch elite golfers. They're like this at impact. They have no extension in the wrist. Their wrist is either flat or a little bit flexed at impact. Compression, ball flight, distance, all the stuff we want. Awesome. Let's work backwards. When it was measured 5, 8, 10 years ago, I don't remember, it was seen that from here to here, everybody on the tour at the time but one is moving like this, what people think of as a flip. But when you watch Dustin Johnson, all of them, they're like this over here. So this angle is being released too. So if we're releasing this angle from here to here, and we're still like this at impact, we better have some of this angle at this position right here. Like, you can't be like this. You got no chance. You need to be like this so you can release the angle and still have shaft lean. Something else they've discovered. If you're in this position, if you can get the club head behind your hands, there's more club head speed to be generated. Okay? So, if we know the left wrist is in this position at shaft parallel, and the club is behind the hands, somebody tell me how you can rotate and hold this angle and get to that position. There are a lot of ways to swing a golf club, but the easiest way to get to that position while you're rotating is to slowly throw that angle away. Okay? So you don't want to hold that angle. If you're throwing that angle away, you're either, well, there's many reasons why, but you're either going that way in the wrong direction, or you're leaving your arms behind and the physics of the club are making it go like this. If your body is shifting and rotating and your arms and hands are linked up to the rotation of your body correctly, good players are absolutely unloading that angle to get to this position so they can get into impact correctly. So there's a big misunderstanding. Holding the angle is not the answer. Finding the reason why you're throwing it away early is the answer. So these wide to narrow drills, okay? So watch what happens to this wrist when I go wide to narrow. I've got extension in the left wrist. Shaft is going to be pitched out. Club face is going to be open to all of the variables we want it fairly square to. Disaster. Take it back, hold the lag, shallow it this way. Anybody thinks this is going to end well? It's not. Okay? So if all you understand is that this movement is happening, we just don't see it visually or even on a wrist graph happening because there are forces going in the other direction. But if you have the intent to go like this, it encourages your body to go like this in order to get to that position. So, the bad move is throwing it this way. The good move is throwing it that way. Because getting it that way by dropping the right shoulder, look at that club face. Terrible. But if you're rotating and shifting correctly, look at how unloading that angle the right way gets you in this perfect delivery position where the left wrist is a little flexed and the club head is behind your hands. So I call it casting to 8 o'clock. You guys are at 6, targets at 12, cast to 8 as you're rotating. Look where I get to. Okay? So, do you need to actively do that? I don't know. Maybe you do it correctly already and you don't need to. The point of the discussion is the active holding of the angle or burying this angle just gets you in all sorts of trouble. Okay? So I say this a lot. This lag angle, left arm shaft lag angle, pretty meaningless. Because look, that doesn't look like I have that much lag. That looks like I have all sorts of lag. I didn't change my wrist angles, I just changed the pitch of the shaft. The important lag angle is at shaft parallel to the ground, you want the club head lagging the hands. You don't want the club head outside the hands. And watch what happens when you go wide to narrow. Look where the club's going to go. show me how to go. I can't even do it in slow motion. Okay? So we don't want to throw that angle away this way. We want to throw it that way while everything else is sequencing properly. So hopefully this sheds a little light on a subject that I think has been misinterpreted for quite a while. A lot of people have benefited from this. So if you want to see that in more detail, get the video. It has a lot of details and drills that show you exactly why this works for a lot of people and why it's better than the holding angles stuff. So, spoke a little piece about that. There's a video to be had. We can talk about some other stuff. Anybody have any pressing questions? Okay. T-Wad 67. On the backswing, I have to turn my left wrist quite a bit to get flat. Is that correct? The face is very closed. Seems to be part of one of the NTC drills where the face is quite closed. Good question. Okay, so let's discuss that. So, open, closed, there's a lot of debate on what that really means. It's all about the reference point. People will say if the club is pointed to the sky, it's closed. Well, if you have a flat backswing, that's not closed. Okay? Upright backswing, that club had the same alignment to my left arm as it did when I was over here. One pointed to the sky, one was toe down. So I like to think of as square is, it's just a reference point. It's actually fairly meaningless, but it's a reference point to talk about what happens next. But I like to look at the left arm. That club face is square to the left arm, that's closed to the left arm, that's open to the left arm. Okay? Now, if you're fairly square to the left arm and you're hinging the wrist correctly and the club looks like this, grip might be too strong. Okay? Especially if we can see some of the issues that you're having after that. But there's another possible variable, is if you go like this and don't have enough vertical wrist hinge. See? No vertical wrist hinge. That club is very shut. But if I set the vertical hinge, now that club is pretty square. So a lot of people think they have a shut club face because they haven't vertical hinged enough. Here's the hard part, is you want a proper balance. You want some of this movement in the wrist, you want some of that movement in the wrist, and then you want a grip that matches the way the rest of your body moves on the backswing and downswing. So, the simple answer is, you can get some of these things kind of right, but generally go talk to someone who knows what they're doing and make sure that your alignments don't have to be perfect, but not too far off. You want your alignments to be in a range of acceptability so you don't have to work so hard to get to impact. So that's why the people that say, well, you don't hit it with the backswing doesn't matter. Look at Ray Floyd, look at Jim Furyk, look at Matt Wolf. Well, yeah, okay, they made it work that way, but they have to work really hard to get to impact correctly. So, if you make a backswing like this, your odds of getting back to impact correctly are donut most of the time. So, getting in what I like to call a neutral position at the top generally makes golf easier. And at the top, to be neutral, a grip that works for you, and then a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Hopefully that answered a lot of questions, not just yours. All right, let's see what else we got here. Can you do a slower swing with the correct sequence so we can see it? Excellent, from Odad19. Okay, so I'm going to do it from both angles. So I'm not going to get into weight shifts and rotation and whatnot. This is about wrist movements. So I'm going to try and just talk about that because it'll take me 3 hours to do the whole thing. But generally speaking, you like to see, people say one-piece takeaway. The problem with the one-piece takeaway is people tend to get to this position and then all bets are off. Most good players, the club head moves first and the hips move last. So when you get to left arm parallel, you want the left arm in the shaft, especially with an iron, to be pretty close to 90 degrees. A little bit less than 90 degrees with drivers fine. You just don't see too many good players doing this. You can find them, but the outliers usually prove the rule, which is with an iron, you'll see most good players in this position. And here's why. If I decided I got a 7 iron in my hands here, 180, 185. I want to hit this 7 iron 120 yards low under the trees. If I'm at here, I can hit the ball. If I'm here, good luck. So, learning to get your wrists hinged in sequence with your body. So it's here, and then at the top, a little bit of rotating this way to get a neutral left wrist because you don't want this. So now it's hinge, set that way, throw this way, release. Okay? Auntie, that's a flip. Well, yeah, when I'm demonstrating in slow motion, it's a flip. Throw to 8, release. But if I'm doing that while all of this is moving and shifting, it turns into that. So it's set, throw, throw. Alrighty, good questions so far. Should you pair NTC with some left side transition thought? Left shoulder off the chin, arms off the chest. Conversely, is leading with the right elbow compatible with throwing away the angle? From 80 woman. ADT woman. Yes, absolutely. These things, so let's back up for a second. Golfers have problems in their sequencing because there's one link in the chain or 2 links in the chain that are broken. Okay? So you can't just say, fix the chain. All right? You have to go in where the first broken link is and rectify that. So, lead with the right elbow is not is not literal. You're not trying to get to here. You're just trying to avoid, left arm off the chest, shoulder off the chin. These are all movements that get your arm sequenced to your body while you're unloading the angle. Well, some people don't unload the angle correctly. They need to do that. Some people don't sequence their arms correctly. They need to do that. Some people do both correctly and need to learn to rotate their body and shift their body better. They need to do that. So to answer your question, your job as a golfer is to find good information where you can, whether it's in this Instagram live show or from, a local pro that knows what he's doing, and learn where you're going wrong and integrate one new movement into your swing. If you try to do shift to the left at the end of the backswing from power shift and get your left arm off of your chest and your left shoulder off of your chin from broom force and cast the club to 8 o'clock from no turn cast, and you're trying to do all those things at once, you're going to fail miserably. Okay? You got to make one make the others work. But if you know where you're going wrong in one of these, you can make all of them work just with one idea. With NTC, can you run into issues with the intent of cast being toward 9 o'clock? If you're trying to cast all the way toward 9 behind you, you might get in a drop in your right shoulder too much. But these are all reference points. These are all feels. Two discussions. There is ulnar deviation in the swing. Okay? That's a fact. Okay? Now, what ideas can we throw into our swings that will make us do that correctly at the right time? For you, it might be 9. For somebody else, it might be 7. Someone may think 10, because they're really coming out. What you feel doesn't matter as long as you know what you're trying to accomplish in the larger picture in your swing, and you're throwing one feel at it to make things line up. All right. Can you give a right hand feel for cast A? R Chang 72. That's a great question. Okay. So when you're up at the top, if you just put the club in your right hand, I can't tell you what the feel is specifically, but here's what I can tell you. If you go up to the top, and as you're turning your body, you throw the club in that direction, you will get the feel. Oh, this is what I got to feel. It might not even be a wrist motion. It might be unloading the right elbow. So you get to the top. As you're turning, go toward 8. Look at this unloaded. I got more bend in my right wrist because I'm going this way. My palm is pointed that way. Any of those feels can work, okay? It's about do the correct movement slowly, and what do you feel? Okay. Good questions. Okay, can I start trying this out on like 50, 60-yard pitches? I won't even read the rest of the question because it's already a good question. Yes, that's how you have to start. I make these analogies all the time. If you have a track sprinter, 100 meters, Usain Bolt, okay? Greatest track sprinter of the last 15, 20 years, maybe ever. His coach says, you know what, Usain, you've slowed down a little the last couple of weeks because, excuse me, your stride's gotten too long. You got those big long legs, stride has gotten too long, you're slowing down. You need to shorten up your stride 4 inches, okay? Is he gonna get in the starting blocks and run a 100-yard dash as fast as he can, trying to shorten his swing 4 inches, or is he gonna leisurely jog around the track for hours and hours and hours, testing different feels on how to get that stride shortened? Okay, the answer is obviously B. Same with a weightlifter. A weightlifter can bench press 300 pounds, let's say, and his trainer says, well, you can bench press 400 pounds, you're strong enough, but your wrists are on the bar poorly, and when you push, you're putting too much pressure on your wrists, and you're not able to use all of the force necessary. Is that guy going to practice on 300 pounds as max? Or is he going to grab the bar and put a little bit of weight, maybe 100, 150 pounds, and test different wrist angles on the bar to see which one he's able to create the most force? The answer is obviously B again. Yet you go to a driving range and everybody is working on their swing by smashing driver for 3 hours. Doesn't work. You need to learn how to make active changes in your swing on little shots, get the movements down, and gradually add length to the swing and add speed to the swing until you can create those new movements with a driver. But smashing driver for an hour, other than releasing some excess frustration, is pretty much going to ingrain the swing that you have right now, because your current swing is how your body perceives speed and power is created. So, yes, 50, 60-yard shots, great way to learn how to move your wrist correctly. Okay, can you please explain what ground forces, this is unrelated, but it's a good question, so I'm going to answer it anyway. Can you please explain what ground forces we are witnessing when long drivers and tour professionals clear their hips and appear to almost be jumping left? Okay, this is a very complicated question, but there's an easy answer, okay? So the direction of the vertical force vector is this way. If I'm hitting the ball that way, it's up and back, okay? So when they push up and back, it makes that left hip leave the ground and go over there. Because if I'm going this way, the left foot's not going to go that way. But if I'm pushing up and back, that's the force I'm putting on the ground and why their feet go that way. Now, if you get there and say, oh, that's how I hit it far, I'll just jump and pull my foot over here, that's a disaster. This is all in Power Shift. Very detailed. One of my best videos, I think. It's called ground reaction force. So, in simple physics, what's a reaction? It's an equal and opposite force to an action. So if the ground reaction force is this way, you have to push this way to get it, which is why you go to the right, you go down and to the left, and then you push up and back as a reaction. If you try to shift your weight into the right side and try to push up and back and go like this, I think you can see it's a disaster. So you can't do this move on purpose. It's a reaction to shifting and rotating and sequencing correctly. And like I said, shameless plug, all of the details of that are in my video Power Shift. Shameless plugs. That's what this is about. Okay. I got hack motion, cast and backswing. Okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, you ulnar deviate in the backswing. There's a problem with that. It may work for you. I don't want to be snide, but I hear this works for me all of the time, all day, every day. And the last time this works for me actually worked for them. The next time that happens, it'll be the first time. Because here's the problem. Most club head speed comes from proper loading and unloading of your wrists. And if you're ulnar deviating in the backswing, you're not loading them, so you can't unload them correctly. You may be, now, I'm not going to deny that you can hit the ball flush and solid and straight doing that, but if you're ulnar deviating in the backswing, you are way below your ceiling on how much club head speed and distance you can have. So that's the negative of that. But I'm not saying you can't hit the ball that way, because you can. It's just not the most efficient way to do it. Have struggled with understanding the release in the golf swing. I've recently realized that Cast B is the release. Cast A is part of the release too, but yes, Cast B is part of the release. So let's look at this. Okay, so we know that the overwhelming majority of tour players are going like this. And people are saying, okay, Monty, that's a flip and you're going to hook the ball. Watch the club face. So if I'm here, okay, watch the club face. There's no rotation on the club face. If you're holding that angle, you're going to get an open club face, and then you have to go like that, and that's where the blocks and hooks come from. But if you're allowing, I like to say you need to allow this movement to happen, okay? Because when the hands slow down and the club speeds up, that's the movement that happens. If you are constantly accelerating the hands, I'm going to get an open club face coming into impact. Club face that's too open coming into impact. So sometimes you have to actively do what'll happen what'll happen automatically, and the cast to 8 and cast B, what people call a flip. Sometimes you have to actively do those to get them to line up to your body. All right? And the irony is generally speaking, the harder you try to hold the lag and hold off the release, the more casting and the more negative casting and flipping you get. Whereas if you allow those angles to unload as you're accelerating, your body and linking up correctly, generally those releases will be later. So it's kind of ironic how that happens. All right. Why does handle dragging cause shanks? Because you're leading with the hosel when you hold the angles. It's not more complicated than that. The more you hold the angles, the more you're leading with the hosel. It's that cut and dried. Okay, great question. Bars 9870. From an aging player that is losing distance, can you talk about the best ways to increase speed? The best way to increase speed is to make your swing work more efficiently. It's all the stretching and flexibility and strength training and speed training and whatever. All of those things will just make you swing faster the wrong way, which will force your body to slow down, to manipulate at the bottom to get the ball to go straight. Sequencing correctly is the number one way to hit the ball farther. And I'll give you evidence from my own career. So some of you may or may not know my history. I'll be short. In the mid 90s, I was making it through stages of Q school. I led on the Corn Ferry Tour, the back nine Sunday. I could play, and I was the world long driving champion, 2-time runner-up. I could swing 150 miles an hour, and on the golf course, 135 plus. Okay, I hit it far, and I could play. A lot of these cliches, people say, oh, you got to do this, you got to hold this angle, you got to get your hips open, you got to do this, that, and the other. I bought into all of them. When I was 40 years old, which was 16 years ago, my club head speed went all the way down to under 110 miles an hour, and I had trouble breaking 80 half the time. I was so confused and so locked up. So I was 108, 110 miles an hour when I was 40 years old. Then I started to study the swing and started to see what actually created club head speed. And by the time I was 45, I was a world-class long driver again. When I was 46, I finished 6th in the World Long Driving Championship. And when I was 48, I finished 8th. And I was still able to get over 200 miles an hour ball speed when I was 48 years old. Now I'm 56. I'm out of shape, man. Between a knee surgery, being laid up for 6 months, and COVID lockdown, went from 200 all the way up to 255. I'm at 240. I'm 40 pounds overweight, 56 years old, and I can still swing over 120 miles an hour because I try to sequence my swing correctly and hit the ball that way. So to me, that's where speed comes from. It's having an efficient, well-sequenced golf swing. Not firing the hips, not firing the arms as fast as you can, not lunging this, not swinging sticks. Swinging the speed sticks and the Sasho McKenzie's thing, they're helpful to an already good golf swing. Strength training, getting more flexible, that's good for general fitness. I need to do some of that. But when it comes right down to it, making your swing work more efficiently is the way you generate club head speed and distance. All right. Good questions as usual. No holes in one. Monty, your 3 lefts for short wedges has been a godsend. Can I use it for all my irons? Absolutely. And it's 4 lefts. Okay? It's ball more forward, which is left. Weight more forward at address, left. Stay left. and then shift left normally. But you know the concept, so that's for everybody else. Yeah, you want it like 5-iron for me, 205, 210, 110, 115 feet in the air. If I want to hit it 185 yards, 180 yards, 70 feet in the air, I do the 4 lefts. Ball comes out lower, doesn't have any extra spin, cuts right through the wind, goes right under the trees. Good question. Oh, Upstate Flyer, thank you. He said I was the best teacher in the world. I don't know about that, but I like to think I know a few things here and there. If you get the club moving up and away during transition, will the release take care of itself, or do you have to actively unload the horizontal hinge? Good question. Okay. Really good question. Okay. So, something a lot of golfers don't know. The club doesn't go directly to the ball from the top of the swing. It goes up and away from the ball. Okay? That's how it shallows. If you go straight to the ball, it steepens. Okay? Some people don't like steepen and shallow for the pitch of the shaft, but most people understand that. So until we come up with, upright, flat, whatever, steep and shallow is what people understand, so forgive me if you don't like that. But watch the club head. It moves up and away. And the question was, does it release properly? Maybe. Okay? It's a good start. Okay? If it doesn't release properly, there's something in there that I can't begin to guess what it is. But if you can get up and you make an effective backswing and get to the left side, and you get the club to move up and away from the ball first move down, most of the time good elite players hit bad shots, okay? So sometimes you're going to screw it up. But generally speaking, if you get the club moving up and away, you're going to be pretty good with the release. All right. What's your number one drill for sequencing? Oh boy, Just Swear. What a great name. Okay, number one drill for sequencing. Okay, everybody hates this. So, I get a lot of disagreement from pros who I respect. They're good. They're smart. They disagree with me, and that's fine. We're allowed to disagree. I get a lot of piss and vinegar from, less than elite golfers, let's say, about that I teach an arm swing. Okay? I don't. Here's my opinion on the situation. This is from, thousands and thousands and thousands of online lessons, golf schools, in-person lessons. I've only been teaching 13 years now, and I've probably given, between online and in person, I'm probably getting close to 50,000. And here's what I see all day, every day. If someone shoots over par regularly, at this point in the swing, their hands and arms are behind their body at this point. When you see elite players, their hands are in front of their right thigh at shaft parallel to the ground. Most everybody else is back here, and I see a lot like this. And here's my opinion on this. The golfing public has been inundated for 100 years with lead with the lower body, the arms and hands are along for the ride, and passive. Now, I know some very good teachers who teach that and are very successful. I don't believe that's a good narrative, okay? I'm not saying the people that say that are wrong. I'm saying I believe that's a poor narrative. And the evidence is everybody looks like this coming into impact. Then they stall, their arms take over, my swing's too armsy, your swing looks too armsy, you got to get your body moving. It's a disaster. Makes it worse. So, the arms only trail the body. Okay? This is in Broom Force. The arms only trail the body by 2/100ths of a second. That's 20 milliseconds. Blink of an eye is 333 milliseconds. It's not a very long period of time. So if you actively lead with the lower body, you're going to end up like this, which is what most decent players do, or the higher handicappers do this. Oh, look, your armsy and your handsy. Your hands are coming over the top. Well, no. My body is spinning and my arms haven't budged from where they were in relation to my chest at the top. So, that's the impetus. I think a great drill, and everybody hates this drill because it's hard and it's annoying. And you hear Justin Rose talk about he feels himself doing this in his full swing. So, just to increase on the rant. And all the devil advocates say, well, those guys pivot correctly already, so they have to feel that. Well, all the amateurs that are like this probably have to feel that too. Jack Nicklaus, keep your back to the target for as long as you can, and once you get to the left side, you can't release too early. Tiger Woods, I try to get my hands to beat my belt buckle to the ball. Justin Rose, I feel like I stay closed until I come all the way down to here. Sergio, Padraig Harrington, I tried Bryson DeChambeau. I try to whip my arms and pull down to this place as fast as I can. You're sensing a pattern, all right? So the drill, rant's never over, but this part of the rant is over. My rants are never over. Take a backswing. Come to a stop. Without turning, bring your hands in front of your right thigh. Now this is key. If you try to recock the club and hit it for power, you obviously see you're defeating the purpose of the drill. You're not supposed to hit this ball very far. You're supposed to give your body the feeling. The hands get to here, then you can turn and hit it. That ball would have gone about 5 yards in the air, okay? But you're giving the body the feel of letting the arms link up before the body fires. To me, that's the best sequencing drill. Wow, that was a severe rant, even for me. Okay. Okay. I see guys like Matt Fitzpatrick and others almost hit their shoulder with the shaft on the downswing. Is that something to strive for? In my opinion, no. It's hard to recover from that place for most golfers. If you see, most golfers, elite golfers, they're not doing that. Look, pros can fall for some of these, what I believe are antiquated ideas. Oh, gotta switch the camera. Pros fall for some of these antiquated ideas just like the rest of us have. And I know Fitzpatrick's picked up a lot of distance, but that really getting that severe angle like this, look at my left wrist. It's hard to play golf from there. Whereas you can play golf from here. And there's really no significant gain or loss in speed by burying this angle really hard. I've yet to see a study that says more lag makes you hit it, more of this lag makes you hit it farther. But as I said, more of this lag makes you hit it farther. And if the shaft is almost hitting you in the shoulder, it's going to come this way. Whereas if it's working away from the shoulder, it's going to work more that way. So I probably should have gotten in front of the camera, but in the other side. But yeah, I don't think that's ideal. And obviously he's better than I am, but for the average golfer, that's a tough thing. Which video covers the 4 lefts? Power Shift covers a lot of it. From one old long driver to another, thank you for your simplification of the swing. Charlie Hamrick, thanks, boss. Ulnar deviation on the backswing for short game. Okay, this is a really, really good question. Okay, let me go over here. Let me grab a wedge if there's a wedge over here somewhere. Okay, here we go. So, a little Jason Day-esque. So, a little bit of that move in the backswing. I'm not going to stand here and say that doesn't work, because it does. And I've seen even some, average golfers, 5, 6, 12 handicappers, be very, very good doing that. So I'm not going to sit here and say, okay? That's not how I teach golf. That's not how I receive information. I want what works, what's easiest. The problem is, here's the problem. If you ulnar deviate in the backswing, okay, you don't have a lot of leverage. And the second you try to create some speed, it's going to be like this. And the worst thing you can do in your short game is have excess motion right here. That kills pretty much everybody at every skill level. So while I concede that this is absolutely a viable way to hit pitches, and it works for golfers at multiple skill levels, be very, very careful that when you do it, that you don't try to create speed by firing the hips really hard, because then that throws off the sequencing on your pitch shots. Because I already said, on a full swing, the lower body only leads the arms by 2/100ths of a second. On pitch shots, the lower body doesn't lead at all. Basically, everything moves at once on pitch shots. The hips, the thorax, the hands, and the club. You don't see any of this, because that's torque and speed. You want everything moving at the same speed. And when you're like this, there's going to be a tendency to want to go like that. But as long as you don't do that, if you can get up there and go, see, I can't do it. That's foreign to me. But if you can do that and hit a good shot, I'm not going to say don't do it that way. That was a really good question. All right. Yeah, I know. I forgot to change the camera angle. I apologize. I asked earlier, but don't think you saw. I've seen some famous coaches explain the trail wrist movement as the same movement as throwing a ball or shooting a basketball. No, I like that. To me, there's a reason why people make a joke and say, well, pitchers only play once every 5 days, so they get to go play golf. Well, that's fine. But a baseball swing is a slice. Get the hips open, hold this angle and wrist underneath the bat. That's a slice. Pitchers, quarterbacks, stay closed, stay closed, stay closed, open up and unload the right wrist. That's why quarterbacks and pitchers, Steph Curry notwithstanding, win that tournament in Tahoe every year, because their natural mechanics of quarterbacking and pitching are more like a golf swing than a baseball swing. Yeah, I know, I forgot. I'm not perfect, even though it seems like I think I am. Show the drill again, please. Okay. So the sequencing drill. Oh, I know why you could see me in the mirror over there. That's, okay. So the sequencing drill is go here, bring it down in front of the right thigh without turning your hips or shoulders, and turn through the ball. And I'm sure you all heard, if you come to this spot and recock the arms for power and then fire the body, it obviously defeats the purpose. I only hit that ball 10 yards. So it's here, here, turn and hit it. And you can see it's going to get me to a pretty good impact position. Fire the cameraman. Yeah, definitely fire the cameraman. Yep. I know. Camera screwed it up. Yep. Did the drill again. Best drill to fix over the top. It's what we're talking about. Okay? So, there's two parts. There's two parts. Well, there's more than two parts, but the two main parts to not being over the top. Part one is make sure you're starting to work left as you get to the top of the swing, the power shift move. But if you're up here and you're casting the club to 8 o'clock, how are you going to come over the top? So, get into the left side, throw it to 8, rotate. Coming from the inside, nice draw on target. Monty's a genius. Okay. All right. Okay. Can you show how to not hit way behind the ball when using the zipper away and stuff like this? Okay. This is another one of those concepts that is pervade. This is a power shift stuff. This is another one of those concepts that's pervade for 100 years. You shift to the right in the backswing, you shift to the left in the downswing. That doesn't work, okay? Maybe elite athletes and elite golfers can kind of make that work, but when you watch elite golfers, they shift to the right early, and then as they get to the top, they're moving back to the left, just like a pitcher. Turns and goes to the right, and then before he opens up, he's going back to the left. Okay? So, if you're like this, shifting to the right, that's going to be fat. Okay? But if you go to the right, back to the left, rotate, that's going to be more on the ball. You got to get that shift to happen as the last move of the backswing, not the first move of the downswing. Fire the cameraman. That's great. Totally deserved criticism. Thoughts on trail elbow bend at impact. I feel like a lot of people try and maintain that elbow bend along with lag angle rather than releasing. Okay, so trail elbow bend has so many variables on whether you should or shouldn't and how much. Like, I'm 6'2". I've only got a 6-foot wing. Ken Venturi. I learned this from Ken Venturi. Okay? Fairly decent golfer, smart man, famous guy. This was like 30 years ago, and we were doing an infomercial together for a shaft. And he was a little bit upset, and he had had a few cocktails at lunch while we were having a rain delay. Great guy, by the way, one of the nicest guys ever. And he started talking about people copying Hogan's swing and thought that was ridiculous. And I said, how so? I wanted to learn something from great man. And he goes, listen, Monty. He goes, your arms are pretty proportional to your height. And I go, actually, they're a little short. He goes, even worse. So he goes, bend your right elbow X amount of degrees. Now put it in this spot on your side. Now tilt to the right and get the club all the way down to the ball. It hurt. And he goes, exactly right. Ben's, he called him Ben. He goes, Ben's arms were really long. He could tie his shoes without bending over. So I've heard from more than one person that they approximated maybe he was 5'8" and he had over a 6-foot wingspan. So he better have a right elbow bent and better have a lot of, right tilted impact, or he's not going to hit the ball very well. But someone like me who's very high-waisted, okay, arms shorter than my than my height, if I have a lot of right elbow bend and a lot of right tilted impact, I'm going to be terrible. So to answer the question, I have never found someone who straightened the right elbow too early without an extenuating factor. Poor shift, poor rotation, poor position of the club, whatever. The right elbow should theoretically start straightening the first move down. Just like this should be the first move down, this should also be the first move down, because it encourages your body to rotate to the ball. And I've done this with dozens, if not probably hundreds of golfers. Monty, I stall out and lock out my right arm at impact. How do I keep my right elbow bent longer and rotate through impact? I say, straighten your elbow, first move down in that direction, and I'm pointing toward 8 o'clock. And they look at me like I've lost my mind, and they say, Monty, you've lost your mind. I said, I'm well aware of that, but just try it. Without exception, everybody that tries that has more right elbow bend at impact and their body more open at impact when they try to straighten it early. Because here's what happens. Holding lag, keeping the right elbow bent, wide and narrow, keep it bent, hold the lag, hold the lag. I can't hit the ball. Guess how I'm going to hit the ball? Stand up, stall out, chuck the angles, straighten the elbow. Okay? But if I go, straighten the elbow, 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 rotating to the ball is the only way I can get there. It's actually easier seen from here. Cast the club, straighten the elbow. This is the only way I can get to the ball, is to rotate and shift to it. Whereas if I'm in here like this, that's the only way I can get to the ball. So one saying Hogan was famous for is he would tell hackers, take every instinct you have on what you think you should do to hit the ball and do the exact opposite. And that's what I'm telling you here. Unload those angles, straighten that elbow, and if your body doesn't right tilt and shift and rotate, you'll never get to the ball. But if you're holding these angles, stand up, stall, throw is all you've got. The opposite of what logic would dictate. So I'm going to answer one more question. We're kind of coming up on the hour here. These are all good. I apologize for not being able to answer everybody's questions. As most of you know, I'm long-winded and I'm a ranting fool. One last question here. Why am I hitting the toe shots using NTC? It's hard to say. Probably getting to the one that I've seen is people are stuck on the right side. Okay? If you're stuck on the right side at the top of the swing and you do the NTC, you're going to get a lot of toe shots, and you're going to get a lot of fat shots, and you're going to get a lot of hooks. So I'm not saying that's it for sure, but that's the most likely reason why you're doing that. Okay, one last question. Rafael Davis Esquire. Okay, love him. He's a good dude. Does early wrist flexion in the backswing typically lead to a loss of power in the downswing? Well, John Rahm, Dustin Johnson say different, okay? Doing it wrong, doing it excessively, not unloading the angle correctly will be a loss of power. But if you are good enough to get in here like this and then release the angles properly and pivot properly, it's absolutely not a loss of power. All right? One swing for driver or irons or two. From ADPCNY. It's random, but your intent should be the same. Every swing is different with every club because they're different lengths, different lies. But your intent to hit the ball should be the same with all clubs. All right, everybody. I appreciate you all coming and listening to me. And this will be up on Instagram tomorrow if you missed any of it. And I'm going to keep doing these because I have fun and I enjoy answering the questions and ranting and raving about my ideas. And have a good evening.